Good afternoon, everyone. So today morning we had discussed about ISO. We'll be continuing that in the afternoon section also. So we learned about testing and calibration laboratories. Like what is testing laboratory? What is calibration laboratory? So we have learned about that today morning. Now we will go. Why is ISO 17025 important? Like what is the most importance of ISO? Okay. So Laboratory sampling, testing and conformity assessment are crucial enabling factors for technology and trade. For example, if your laboratory doesn't have like a certificate value, okay, example blood, if I am getting blood as a sample, me as a person want to know the DNA of the person, okay, so what will I do? Will I give it to like any small laboratory, or will I go for some laboratory that has some kind of value? Will I send it to CBI laboratory in Delhi? I'll mostly choose that, right? Just like that, for people to choose a laboratory, it should have some standards. So if you're having an ISO certificate, that's very good for your laboratory, okay? Your laboratory will have so much standards. So people will try to approach you, okay? Or the government will try to approach you for some testing purposes. So the main importance is laboratory sampling, testing, conformity. Laboratory gets one kind of medal for a laboratory, okay? ISO IEC 17025 assists in harmonization of procedures, standard methods, facilitates cooperation between laboratories and other bodies, and promotes acceptance of results between countries. See, all the works in the laboratory will be harmonized, okay? They will be following a standard protocol, everything. Also, you can see that acceptance of results between countries. For example, if I am giving a sample, if the ISO is like an international organization, right? So what happens? If ISO is giving a certificate for an Indian laboratory, that means the test done in Indian laboratories, entire world is like valid, okay? Because ISO are already given a certification for that. That means the test is very valid outside also. We can go to outside court also and present that the test is valid. So that is the main importance of ISO. So we have to go to a little deep about ISO. We are not going to that much depth, but we will just explain the sessions of ISO, okay? There are like in ISO IEC is divided into 5 main sections, okay? There are 5 main sections in ISO IEC 17025, okay? We are only talking about 17025, nothing else. So it has 5 main sections. So section 4 is known as general requirement, section 5 is known as structural requirement, section 6 is known as resource requirement, section 7 is known as process requirement, and section 8 is known as management requirement, okay? So these are the 5 sessions. We will just give a brief idea about the sessions, okay? You don't need to go into deep about the sessions, because all the sections will be having subcategories also, so it will be hard for you to learn. So we will just go into the brief about the sessions. So first we will start with general requirements. So session 4. Sessions doesn't start from 1, okay? Sessions start from section 4. From there 5 sessions. So first section is section 4. Section 4 is general requirements. General requirements. So what is general requirements? This session covers impartiality and confidentiality. Impartiality implies that laboratory will not allow commercial, financial or other pressures to compromise the quality of results. Internal issues, personal relationship or other conflicts of interest are addressed and resolved. First one is general requirement. General requirement section 4. What does it deal with? It deals with impartiality and confidentiality. Impartiality means the lab will not be in favor of anyone, okay? For example, it's a personal relative, okay? You have some bias towards it. You are giving a results like that according to a biased way. That is not correct. So we have to be impartial, no partiality in the results, okay? No partiality in the techniques, okay? That is known as impartiality. And confidentiality, you must maintain the confidential information, that's all. So general requirement mainly deals with impartiality and confidentiality. That means laboratory will not allow commercial, financial or other pressures to compromise the quality of results, okay? No amount of bribery, no financial bribes or no government pressures or political pressures must not come between the result of the laboratory, okay? So laboratory will be impartial in their results. Then we are having structural requirements. So this section defines the basic organizational components of a laboratory, its range of activities and its commitment to an effective management system. It states that an accredited body must be legally entity or part of legal entity which is responsible for testing, and this section just means that it just defines about the basic organization structure of the we have seen the organization structure of FSL yesterday, right? Director, all those things, that is organization structure. Just like that, structural requirement just defines the basic structure of the laboratory, how it is, how many people are dealing with what all things, what is the head, what will be he deal with, all those things, all those general requirements, like defines the components of laboratory, what all activities it does, the range of activities and its commitment towards effective management system. So it just defines the structure, only the structure or the general structure of the laboratory and the range of activities. One, for example, one post, what all he will be doing, or what all that group will be doing, what is the task of that group, all those things are mentioned in structural requirements. We are just going in a brief idea about structural requirements, nothing deep. Okay. Yes, section 5 sets management responsibility to an accredited laboratory and their responsibility to customers, regulatory authorities and organizations that provide recognition. It also defines the basic requirements for personnel, the authority given to them and the resources needed to carry out their duties. So now we understood what is management responsibility. Section 5, it's management responsibilities. Okay, that means it shows the responsibility of the laboratory towards its customers. Okay, responsibility, laboratory should have some responsibility, right? They should maintain the evidence, they should do proper methods, all those responsibilities they have towards the customer, right? So it will show all those. Then to organization, for example, what is the connection of that laboratory with the government or any other institution, outside institution, all those things, or if they are sharing some scientific data. Okay, if I am like, this is a physical laboratory, I have some chemical analysis done, I got a wire, for example, there was a burned case. Okay, there was a burned case, so we got a wire from the house, we got a wire. Okay, we are examining the wire, that mainly comes under physics department. Okay, and after examination of wire we want to do some chemical analysis also, so we will just forward it to a chemical laboratory, so they will analyze the chemical part. So all these, the link with the physical laboratory and the chemical laboratory, what is the link, how is it done, all those things should be addressed. Okay. It also required basic requirement for personnels. It also defines what all requirements are required for a person. For example, what all criteria he has to pass to become that, to take that post. All those things will be defined inside this. For example, like you are getting a job in CBI or something as a junior assistant. So what all will be the requirement? You will have to pass MSc Physics or MSc Chemistry or MSc Forensic Science. Okay, you must like have 1 or 2 years of experience in laboratory work or in teaching experience, all those experience. That is also criteria for a particular post. So all those things are mentioned, and also the power of that person. Okay, for example, in CBI, junior assistant, for example, junior assistant. So what are the powers given to him? He can write reports, all those powers, right? What are the powers given to that person? He can do analysis, he can write the reports. Okay, he has to go for court testimony, he can go for court testimony. All those powers are also defined in this section. So we saw about process requirements. Sorry. Yeah, we saw about general requirements. Okay, that is mainly the impartiality, and we saw about structural requirements. Now we will move on to section 6, that is resource requirement. So section 6, that is resource requirement. So in section 6 there are 6 different subclasses. Okay, that is why I told ISO is a little bit lengthy, so we are not learning all the subclause. I was just telling for common information that there are 6 subclauses inside section 6 or resource requirement. Okay, there are other 6 parts inside that. One part we won't be explaining, that will take lots of time. Okay, so I'll just give a general idea what it is. So there are 6 clauses that address the requirement. There are 6 clauses that address the requirement for the laboratory to have Available the personnel, facilities, equipment, systems and support services necessary to perform its laboratory activity. Resource requirement just mentions about the resources that a laboratory should have. Okay, for example, is dealing with some case. Okay, dealing with some case and we don't have persons to go to the crime scene. Okay, that means there is a lack of personals, right? You don't have enough persons. For example, there were two crimes happening at the same time, so one has to go and photograph the crime scene there, right? Collect evidences. So four people went there. Okay, then another crime scene happened and we don't have anyone to send there. That means we are lacking manpower, lacking resources. So that is addressed here. Laboratory should have enough requirements or enough resources. For example, I am doing fingerprint analysis and I am using one instrument. Okay, and we have lots of fingerprints to be analyzed and I only have one instrument to analyze. That means the instrument, there is a definition of instruments, right? So all those things are addressed in resource requirements. All those things are addressed inside the resource requirements. Okay, the availability of personnel, the facilities, the equipments required, the support services necessary to perform well. Okay, support services like for example, if I am going to a crime scene, okay, we went to a crime scene and we found out that they were mainly like fingerprint experts went to a crime scene. They found out the evidences was mainly biological, or there was a person, the victim was still alive. Then they have to call and take the victim back, right? They have to like save the victim. So for that, they should have some resources. Some people should come there and take the victim. For example, if you go into a crime scene and you have some evidences, for that evidence collection, you need some instruments. Okay, you need some instruments for the evidence collection. And when you came, you didn't bring that. You didn't think that instrument would be required for the collection, so you didn't bring that. But you went to the crime scene and required that instrument. Then you have to call the persons in the laboratory and tell them to bring that. So there should be enough support persons. There should be enough support persons in the laboratory also. So resources means all the resources that laboratory should have or must have. You should have enough personnel, enough equipments, okay, enough support teams, all those things. Then we move on to section 7. Section 7 just defines the process requirement. The heading is known as process requirements. So this section also has many subclauses. Okay, the previous one had 6 subclauses. This section has 11 subclauses. Okay, so if I am teaching about subclauses, it will be very lengthy. So just a brief about it. This section begins with review of requests, tenders, contracts, the selection and verification and validation methods, then sampling, handling of tested items, technical records, everything is covered here. Means, for example, some laboratories may get a tender. Okay, government will be giving a tender to deal with these kind of crime. Like there is Delhi police, for example, there is Delhi police. Okay, Delhi police wants some forensic consultants in their cases. Okay, just an example, Delhi police wants some forensic people in their case. They are getting so many crime scenes. Okay, they cannot collect the evidences effectively, so they need so many people. So they are asking, for example, your college Aditya. So they are asking Aditya to provide some forensic personnels in Delhi police. Okay, so they are doing a tender. They are writing a tender for like 2 years. Aditya will provide forensic experts to Delhi police. Okay, that is known as tenders. They provide some tenders, and Aditya will be providing for 2 years. They have to provide forensic expert to Delhi police when the crimes happens. So all those tenders and contracts, there will be contracts for 2 years. All those contracts and tenders are in this process requirements or in this section. It also shows about selection, verification and validation of method. Means selection, verification and validation of method means we are using a specific method for analysis. For example, blood test. We already know, I taught you about Teigman's test, right? Teigman's test. So for blood test, we are using Teigman's test. So laboratory has to do the test and with their own chemicals and find out that the test is working properly. Everything is given proper results. All those things. So all those requirements, all those validation of methods, all those is done in process requirements. Okay. Also, sampling and handling of test items and technical records are covered here. Sampling means how you sample an item. I took fingerprints. Okay. For example, I go to a crime scene. I found a dead body, we did post-mortem, we got some poisoning cases. For example, the poison was arsenic, okay, and we are going to compare that arsenic with a standard arsenic sample. So we need a standard arsenic sample, right? So all these sample records and all these technical records, everything is done or kept in the process requirement. That is section 7 of ISO 17025. Yes, several tools for monitoring are also do proficiency testing. Then the standard goes too much into regarding the reporting of results. Fine. There is something known as proficiency testing. Proficiency testing is usually done in laboratories to find out how valid their methods are, okay, how efficient they are running. Just giving an example, there is a FSL in Kerala. For example, there is an FSL in Kerala. Take a town in Kerala or city in Kerala, for example, FSL in Kochi. That is one place in Kerala, so you take an FSL in Kochi, okay. You take an FSL in Andhra Pradesh, for example, Kakinada. There is an FSL in Kakinada, okay. So when you are testing for proficiency, what the proficiency testing, third party will be testing for proficiency. So what they do is, they will give the same sample to both the labs and they will check how they are giving the analysis, okay. Or they will be checking for two labs simultaneously, or there will be 3 or 4 labs involved. So they will check how they analyzed it and how the sample was given, how was their analysis, all those things. Okay, they will check between these 2 labs, okay, just like competition, not like competition you can say, just for the proficiency, how much effective they are, okay, how much valid are their methods, all those things will be checked. So they will be giving like blood sample for DNA extraction to both the labs, and both the labs has to do it in a fixed time and give their report. So they will check the time span they took, methods they used, all those things they will check and mark accordingly. That is known as proficiency testing. So proficiency testing is also given under this section. Requirements for dealing with complaints. Okay, this section also gives the format of giving how to give a report. Reporting, you are you have to give a report after analysis. You have to give a report, right? Report of the crime or report of the analysis. So you have to mention everything, what analysis you do, how much time it took, okay, what all resources you used, and what are the results, observations and results. All those reporting or the formats are given in this session, okay, and customer complaints also will be dealing with this session. Management systems, okay. Management system also contains 8 subclauses under it. Management system also contains 8 subclauses under it, okay. That is section 8, management systems requirement. So this section covers 8 activities including QMS. QMS means quality management system. QMS documentation such as policies and objectives, control of documentation and records, addressing risks and opportunities, improvement and corrective actions. It ends with internal audit and management review. The standard only gives the general requirements, therefore it is best to consult ISO 19011 to fill in the details of internal audit. For example, what this means is, what management system means is, they will check all the qualities of the lab, okay. You know what is auditing, right? Auditing. So like there will be like internal audits. For laboratories there will be internal audits. Internal audit means some personnel will come from other laboratories mostly, okay, and they will audit, they will check all the working procedures of every lab, okay. They will audit that if this thing is working, if this thing is giving proper results, all those auditings will be done. That is known as internal audits. That is mainly for quality management, that none of the process in laboratory is not out of quality, okay. So they will come and they will conduct this audit to make sure that everything in the laboratory is following some rules, set rules, they are giving proper results and they are maintaining a quality result, okay. That is what is known by internal audits, okay. They also address risk, opportunities, improvement and corrective actions. Not just audit, they will also see if there are any corrections to be made, okay. If this method is not going correctly, they will tell you how to improve the method, how can we improve the laboratories, okay, what all corrective actions should be taken in the laboratory, okay. Then all those things will be told in the management system requirements. So for internal audits, so ISO, as I told you, ISO is a big standard, okay, as there are so many different standards under ISO. So there is something called ISO 19011. We are learning only about 17025. Okay, there is something called 19011 that will show you the guidelines for internal audits. You don't need to go to 19011 and read it. You can just search in Google if you want. It will show about internal audits. You don't have a topic named internal audits. Okay, if you're just interested to know what is internal audits, you can go to Google and search ISO 19011. Okay, that is ISO section that will show you all about internal audits, how is internal audits done, all this process will be shown. Fine. Yes, what is the benefit of having ISO? Benefits of having ISO 17025. So what is the benefit? Increasing customer confidence. Increasing customer confidence is the first thing. Customers will be very confident to give you a sample. Okay, DNA extraction, there's a big case. Okay, for example, big case in Andhra Pradesh, some politicians was involved. So what will they do? Will they give it to any small FSL or region FSL? No, they will try to give it to CBI FSL or Chandigarh FSL, like big FSLs, right? Because they have all the certifications. So people know that they are good laboratories. Just like that, if you have an ISO certificate, that means your customers will increase. People will have more trust in your results. Okay, that is increasing customer confidence. They will have more confidence in the processes that do in the laboratory, and they will have more trust in you. So they will give you samples. Creating a proactive risk-based business and quality culture and not reactive. That just means that you will not give up anything for the quality. Okay, proactive risk-based business means you will be striving for quality. Okay, you won't give anything for money or something. You won't give up the quality of the lab. Okay, you will always strive to get or financial pressure or political pressure, whatever it is, you will strive to keep up the quality of the lab. Okay, that is known as a proactive culture. Okay, then assuring laboratories credibility. Credibility, you know about credibility. Laboratory will be having more credibility if it is given a ISO certificate. Creating an environment of professionalism and pride. Creating an environment of pressure and professionalism. Pride and professionalism. Okay, that means you are having internal audits. Okay, in your laboratory, you are working in a laboratory, for example. Okay, you are sitting here, you are having internal audits. Auditors will come and check the machines. They will tell that if anything is wrong, and they will correct you. Okay, and they will tell you how this method is done. Okay, they will give you corrective measures. All those things makes you feel that there is this is not a field that is left over. People are still interested and people are telling you what to do. All those things give you much more knowledge, right? That means creating some professionalism. You won't be going with one method only. If there is some new methods, they will also tell you. Okay, you can try out that also. That means you are increasing your knowledge also, and you are doing your work with pride and professionalism. Okay, so that are the benefits of ISO 17025. Yes, so this is in brief about ISO 17025 2017. The requirements, it is having 5 different sections. Okay, first section is section 4, that is general requirements. Second section is structural requirements, that is section 5. Section 6 is resource requirements. Section 7 is process requirements, and section 8 is management systems requirement. Okay, in general requirements, what will you deal with? Impartiality and confidentiality. You must be impartial in your results. Okay, you must keep the customer confidential. So keep the customer results confidential. That is both which is dealt in first, that is general requirements, section 4. Now we moving over to section 5, that is structural requirements. I already told you what are the personals, the structure of the lab, what all personals are placed, what are the requirements, what are the powers, all those things will be given under structural requirements. Then we have resource requirements. I told you there is in resource requirements there is 6 subclauses. Okay, we have learned that there is 6 subclauses in resource requirements, that is general requirement, general resources, personal means not personal, personals means number of persons working in the lab. Okay, manpower, personal requirement means manpower, facilities and environmental conditions, equipments, meteorological traceability, and external provided products and services. So the 6 clauses, you don't need to study them. okay, you can just read them for your information, that will be good for you also, ISO IEC. So resource requirement just tells about the resources that a laboratory should have, okay, it should have enough personnel, enough support team, enough facilities, enough conditions for work, okay, all those things are mentioned here. Then we have section 7. Section 7 is process requirements. Process requirements. As I told you, there are like 10 clauses, 11 clauses, 11 sub clauses, 11 clauses, and I'll just read out the sub clauses. You don't need to learn it and all, but I'll just read out the sub clauses for your understanding. First one is review of the request, tenders and contracts, selection, verification and validation of methods, sampling, handling of test or calibration items, technical records, evaluation of measurability of uncertainty, assuming the validity of results, reporting the results, complaints, non-conforming work, control of data, information management. So what does process requirement means? I told you about, I gave an example about tenders and contracts, all those things, customer complaints, then they check for method validation, this method is valid or not, all those things are done under process requirements, okay. Now we move on to the last section, that is section 8 or the 5th part, that is management systems requirement. Management systems requirement, we have, yes, we have 9 sub clauses, okay. So first one is options, and there is management system, control of documents, control of records, action and risk opportunity, improvement, corrective actions, internal audits, management reviews. So management requirements means mainly the internal audits, okay. Auditors will come, audit your lab, they will tell you if there is any corrective procedures, all those corrective procedures you will have to do. So that is all about management systems requirement, fine. So this is all about ISO IEC. ISO IEC 17025 is the only one you have to study, okay. If you want to study more about ISO, it's okay, you can just go to ISO and read all the sessions. So I'll share you the PPTs. So okay, I've taken references from these sites, okay. ISO's main site, mainly ISO's, if you go to ISO's website directly, you can get all the informations. I'll try to share you with the PPT so that you can go to, when I'm sharing something, try to go to the references, okay. References, I'll mention the references that I have used. So go to the references, click on them and go to the website and read more about it and make your own notes, okay. Don't just study the PPT directly, okay. Maybe I also can be wrong, okay. So whenever there is a reference, that is why people always put some reference, okay. Whenever you are writing something, put a reference. So I have given the references, go to the references, read more about ISO IEC, okay. This is the references where I have taken the information from or made this PPT. Fine, then we are done with ISO IEC. If we are done with ISO IEC, now we will start a small topic of NABL. After ISO IEC in your syllabus, there is a topic known as NABL. NABL, okay, you can check your syllabus, there is a topic known as NABL. So now we will start NABL. Yes, NABL. People, have you ever heard about NABL? So we have talked about ISO, IEC, everything. NABL is for India, okay. NABL is for India. The accreditation department of India is NABL. So first we'll have to know what is accreditation or accreditation. So accreditation means it is a formal recognition, authorization and registration of a laboratory that has demonstrated its capability, competence and credibility to carry out tasks it is claiming to be able to do. It provides a feedback to laboratories as to whether they are performing their work in according to the international criteria for technical components. So ISO is international level. So in Indian level, we have a bureau for accreditation, that is known as NABL. Accreditation means it is like formally recognizing. For example, I have an ID card here, right? That formally recognizes me as a lecturer of Aditya. Okay, just like that, NABL accreditation makes your laboratory like it is like Indian government has recognized this laboratory. NABL works under the government of India. So if you have this NABL accreditation in your laboratory, that means NABL have come here, they have checked the laboratory techniques, they have made sure that everything works fine here, okay, and they are given some accreditation. Accreditation means they are giving some formal recognition. They are giving us formal recognition that this laboratory has showed the capability of doing their work according to the international standards. Okay, according to the international standards, this laboratory is doing their work, and NABL has come here, have they checked their entire methods, all their processes they have checked, and NABL has given their accreditation. So that is known as accreditation. So this is NABL, the symbol of NABL. You can see it in laboratories. Not all laboratories have NABL accreditation, okay, only some laboratories have NABL accreditation. It's very hard to get NABL accreditation because you have to follow the rules, you have to follow like certain standards, you have to follow some certain definite quality, then only NABL will give accreditation. So the concept of what is accreditation? The concept of accreditation was developed and provided by third party certification that laboratory is competent to perform specific tests or types of tests. So accreditation is not something that is given by the laboratory, okay, it is given by a third party like NABL. NABL is not a part of the laboratory, right? It's a third party. So the third party will give some certification that the laboratory is competent, okay, it is competent to do or perform the specific test or types of tests. For example, DNA typing, okay, if I have a NABL certificate for DNA typing, that means that this laboratory where I am giving a sample, NABL has came here, NABL have checked the sample analysis, they have checked every processes, they have checked the personals also who are doing it. So NABL have given accreditation. That means if I give this sample to this laboratory, they will only follow some internationally accepted method for DNA typing, and they will give my results perfectly. People will have that trust if you have an NABL certification. This is a symbol of NABL. Okay, NABL stands for National Accreditation Board of Testing and Calibration Laboratories. NABL stands for National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories. Testing and Calibration Laboratories. It is National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories. Yes, so about NABL, our Indian own accreditation body. So we will have to learn about NABL. So what is NABL? NABL is a constituent body of Quality Control of India. There is a division called Quality Control Board of India, okay, Central Government Division Quality Control Board of India. NABL comes under that, okay. It is an autonomous body under the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and is registered under the Societies Act. So where does this department comes under? It comes under the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. That is a central department, Department of Science and Technology, okay. Registration is done under Societies Act. We will come to acts and all, that is a bit of law, you won't be knowing that, but it is NABL is registered under some act, that act is known as Societies Act. So it is an autonomous body that works under the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Government of India has authorized NABL as the sole accreditation body for testing and calibration laboratories, okay. Government of India had told that in India, if some body is giving an accreditation, that should be NABL, okay. So NABL is a sole or only one accreditation bureau for all the laboratories in a central level, okay. Indian government has told that. The objective of NABL is to provide third party assessment of quality and technical competency. Told you about third party, so they will give you a certification after assessing the quality, okay, and technical competence. Yes, what are the services provided by NABL? Just like ISO, they also have given different services. The first one is for testing and calibration laboratories. First is known as testing and calibration laboratories. testing and calibration laboratories is in accordance with ISO IEC 17025. Now you know why you learned ISO IEC. Okay, so accreditation for testing and calibration is done according to ISO only. Okay, according to ISO only. They use the ISO guidelines also, and they have given the Central Government of India accreditation. So testing and calibration laboratory. Medical testing laboratories in accordance with ISO 15189. Okay, ISO 15189, that is for medical laboratories, all these clinics and all. Then there is proficiency testing. I told you what is proficiency testing. So proficiency testing in accordance with ISO 17043. And reference material production. Reference materials means, for example, I went to a crime scene. Okay, I told you this example. I went to a crime scene and I got, like, this was a arsenic poisoning. Okay, metallic or mercury poisoning. Okay, mercury poisoning. So I went after the postmortem, we extracted some mercury and we want to compare it with some standard. So you will have to have some standard mercury for the comparison, right? So that mercury is known as reference. Okay, reference mercury. So, or reference sample. So reference material providers are the ones who make these reference samples. They are the persons who make the reference samples. So we have a test for them also, that is under ISO 17034. Now you understood ISO contains everything. Okay, ISO contains all the testings and all the different standards for every organization in the world. So NABL also takes some guidelines from ISO. So for testing and calibration, they take ISO's 17025 guidelines. For medical laboratory, they take ISO 15189 guidelines. For proficiency testing, they take ISO's 17043 guidelines, and for reference materials, they take ISO 17034. Yes, this is about the accreditation process, how the process of accreditation is done. You don't need to learn about the process of accreditation. Okay, just I've mentioned that in just one slide or one picture, that's all. Okay, you don't need to learn more about the accreditation process. So accreditation process mainly is like, we have to give an application. First the laboratory has to give an application. Okay, they'll first write an application, they'll send it to the NABL secretariat. Okay, they will send it to the NABL secretariat. First they will write an application, that our laboratory needs some accreditation from NABL. So they will write their application. Okay, they will fill the form that is required. You will get the forms from NABL website. They will fill all the forms and they will send it to NABL secretariat. So secretary will accept it, and there is a person known as lead assessor. In NABL there is a person called as lead assessor. Okay, so he will check their manuals, what manuals are the laboratories following. He will check all the manuals. Okay, lead assessor. Okay, he is a person who checks all the manuals. Then he will go to the lab and conduct a pre-assessment. Okay, before the main people coming, he will go to the lab and he will conduct a pre-assessment. He will check all the criteria are there for NABL to come. Okay, then the final assessment. So if the manual quality is not good, and if the pre-assessment is good, this lead assessor will give a feedback to the laboratory that this process and all is not correct. You have to make it correct before the NABL team comes. Okay, all those things he will tell. Then he will go again and check if all those things are done. Afterwards only the final team will come. Final assessment of the laboratory by the assessment team. Assessment team will come. One full team will come. They will go to the laboratories, different procedures they will check. They will check every manual, every instrument, and how we are keeping the instruments, the temperature, everything they will check. Okay, they will check everything and they will write their report. Okay, and they will take it to the NABL secretariat. Okay, they will take it to the NABL secretariat. If there is any problems in the laboratories, they will tell them that and they will have to rectify it. Then after that, the report will be given to the accreditation committee of NABL. Then the committee will approve the accreditation approved by chairman. Okay, chairman of NABL will approve the accreditation. Then the certificate will be issued by the NABL secretariat. After the chairman, after this assessment teams go there, they brings their report and everything is done, they will give it to the chairman. Chairman will read everything and he will just certify it. After certification, what happens? NABL will secretariat will send their certificate to the lab. That's all about the process. Don't need to go through the process one by one. It's okay. It's just a general knowledge. Benefits. What are the benefits if you are having NABL accreditation? First one is reliable testing for customers. Just like ISO, customers will be happy, they will be reliable on your test. Increased confidence on the reports and emphasis on accuracy and reliable record. Means they will have more confidence and you will know that the accuracy of this laboratory is very much high. Results can be used for public benefits in the provisions of services that can promote like unpolluted water. For example, NABL laboratories can help the public sector also. The municipality want to conduct some water testing, okay, and if they are giving to an NABL lab, that means it's very good, right? You know that municipality is giving it to an NABL lab and they are testing the water, means the like centrally recognized body is testing the water. That means the results will be much more higher quality, okay, they will have much more strength. So they can be used for public welfare also. Feedback system ensures quality assurance and technical competency. There is a feedback system, okay, the customer satisfaction, there is always a feedback system to NABL also of how the laboratories are working. So NABL will always tell you how to change these things, how they have to done. So all those feedback systems will also give customers a quality assurance. Helpful in participating in tenders. So if the government is giving tender to someone, just like I told you, for example, take Kerala police, they want some forensic scientists, okay, and Aditya has a lab, okay. So if Aditya wants to get that tender, if it is having NABL accreditation, the police will know that, right? It is a lab is NABL accredited, so people there will be already gone through the NABL's criteria. They have already passed the NABL criteria and they are all well efficient and well equipped. So they will always go to a lab that is NABL accredited. Potential increase in business due to enhanced customer contact. Like business will increase if customers are more. Yes. And the last one would be customers can search the identity of laboratories from NABL website. So if your laboratory is given accreditation by NABL, you can go to NABL's website and if you search the laboratory name, it will be inside the NABL website also. That means customers can search directly in NABL and find out the laboratory. If there is a laboratory in Andhra Pradesh, if you want to know that if an NABL accredited laboratory, you can go to NABL, type the laboratory's name, you will get the list. Okay. Domestic and international markets. Like international markets, you can go like